I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. I want to note that our usual city attorney is out on vacation, so we have a substitute this morning. Fritz, welcome. Anything you want to bless us with in your
So
resume?
I always think that the best meetings are when I don't have to say anything.
Well, good to have you here. Thank you. Ceremonial matters, proclamations, employee recognitions, Mr. Bailey.
Nothing here, Mayor.
All right. Council comments.
Yes, I'll jump in real quick. Attended the Chamber of Commerce Board meeting not too long ago. A couple of highlights. One is Vincent Michelle, who is a gentleman that was brought on board to act as a consultant for the Housing Authority, has completed his tenure of service, so that's now completed. Extensive conversation at the board regarding the solar eclipse planning. Vendors such as Benny Keith, HEB are all preparing a more robust extension, supply chain logistics support in anticipation of that event. They're looking at close to 100,000 visitors that they're expecting in our community for that time frame. So they're trying to prepare for all things that they can predict and things that may not be able to predict. So that's the highlight of the board meeting and the extent of my conversation on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I attended the Airport Advisory Board meeting on June the 27th. The T hangar occupancy is still 100% with 28 on the wait list. If you happen to see it during the fireworks or if you go by, 3 new hangars are going up and the steel is up and they're starting on the roof. Those are all 3 very large hangars for to house large airplanes. So I think one of the exciting things that came out of the meeting was we got to meet, hang on a second, lost her name. Julie, I'll find it in a minute. But she's a student at FISD and the EAA, or the Experimental Aircraft Association, the local chapter, sponsors kids to get pilot's license. And the EAA, Ray Aviation Scholarship, is a scholarship program that is funded by the Ray Foundation, managed by EAA, and administered through the EAA chapter network. Through the generous support of the Ray Foundation, EAA provides up to $11,000 to deserving youth to cover flight training expenses, totaling $1.8 million in annual scholarship funding. Unfortunately, the flight training now costs around $17,000, so the local chapter is raising money for that. Julie was born and raised in Fredericksburg and has been working at the Backwoods Barbecue for the last 4 years, where she earns funds to pay for her car and personal needs. At the same time, Julie has been involved with student council, soccer, cross country, while excelling in financial math and AP English courses. Julie was selected for and completed an foreign exchange student program in Japan this spring. Julie began flight lessons on April 17th. Juliana Martinez is her name. Thank you. Anyway, she is an amazing young lady, very articulate and very excited to be involved in this program. And probably in the next couple of months, she'll be soloing and get her private pilot's license. So very excited about the program that we have out there. Also, the 2023 Young Eagles event happened. Both these items were in the newspaper 2 weeks ago and this last week. But we had 13 pilots that took 80 kids for flights. And a lot of the kids are really excited and are very eager. A friend of mine took one young man, and he had done a flight what's it called? Where plan the flight. He had a checklist for Bill to start his airplane. He had goggles. He had flight suit on. He was ready to go. So anyway, it's really cool what they're doing out at the airport to support the youth of this community. That's all I've got.
Yesterday was awesome. From the fireworks at the end to the parade at the beginning, it was just a great reminder of how blessed we are to be in this country and in this community. So thank you, Daryl Whitworth, Jennifer Krupa, all the ones who worked very hard to make the parade fantastic. And those fireworks were like none I've ever seen. So thank y'all for that. One thing, Tony and I serve on the Comprehensive Plan and Parks Master Plan Advisory Committee, and that the group will be meeting later this month. And Anna, if you could give us an update just on where we are in the planning process, please.
Sure. So the Parks Master Plan is a little further along, and that first draft has been released to staff. So Park staff is currently going through that to make their revisions, and then that will be released to the advisory committee for a first round of review as well. The comp plan, they've kind of shelled out the first 3 chapters, again, kind of high level. So staff's given their first round of revisions on that before we send it to the committee for review. And then, as you said, July 25th, the advisory committee is going to have their 4th meeting. And I'm also requesting a tour to be set up for this board and planning and zoning to kind of look at projects that have been approved based on our current comp plan. So as we move forward with a new, we can think about our current regulations working for us in the way that we want, or those things that we want to address in the comp plan. So then in August, we would have a joint meeting with P&Z and City Council to kind of talk about current planning trends and new trends as we move forward this new forward-looking comp plan. And then in August, we'll also have another public meeting. It's scheduled, kind of as a generic open house, but I think we're wanting to have something a little bit more interactive and informative, more of a workshop, come and go. So that is to be determined date-wise, but looking mid-August for that. So things are progressing. I think this next meeting of the advisory committee will be very important, really kind of setting expectations of what this document's going to include, and then really start honing in on those specific things that we're looking to address, if it's subdivision ordinance. But overall, the parks plan, like I say, is a little further along. And that survey that was up, we had an open house and survey that closed in March. From March to May, that was open. And then what we're definitely hearing, better facilities for parks and rec, whether that's soccer or baseball, improving existing and adding new, and then multi-use path and trails for pedestrians and cyclists. That's definitely been the number one issue. You'll remember that one of the activities that we did at both the first public open house and then the park specific open house was how would you spend your money, right? As we get into the budget season, people definitely seem to be willing to pay for trails and open space and additional recreation facilities and more park amenities overall. So we'll continue to hash that out through the document and through these meetings. Again, with City Council and Planning and Zoning, I think for those 2 groups to work together on this document will be the most important. And listening from the public through the budget process on where they're wanting their tax money to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. I want to second the brag about the city involvement with yesterday's festivities. I didn't expect to see Jennifer here after the long day she had yesterday. Thank you. And it was great to work with city officials. Thank you to the police, the street department, fire department, all of the people who made it a special day for the entire community. And it's one of those things that we all just swell with pride after July 4th, because this is an unusual community in its aggressiveness in celebrating July 4th. So I love it. And thank you for making it possible. Thank all of you. I did attend an eclipse planning meeting last week. Many meetings. Councilmember Kirshner is appointed as the city rep on that particular planning committee, and she was out and asked me to sub for her, so I did, and happy to say, council, it's very well in hand, thanks to Justin and Jennifer, and all the people who are involved in leading the community organizations to be prepared for whatever is going to come with this eclipse event. The next meeting is in August, but wanted you to know that it just sounded like the people in charge of being in charge are they've just got things in hand well, and I'm very pleased about that. All right, any other comment? All right, well, then we will go to item 6 is the consent agenda. There are 3 items here to be dealt with as one, if you prefer, if you choose. The 2 meeting minutes, June 19th, was the joint meeting with P&Z and the City Council, and the next day, our regular meeting. We have an item of considering a street closure request for the Gillespie County 4-H Adult Leaders Barbecue scheduled for Friday, August 25th. These are a couple of streets, I think it's 3 hours, nearby City Hall, Crockett, and what's the other one? Okay. And then there's a considering of approval for a Keller Oaks maintenance agreement, which shifts the maintenance of is it main sewer?
There's 3 items in the agreement. One is a retaining wall, a private retaining wall. The second is a sewer line running behind multiple lots. And the third is an island within the public right of way, so landscape island in the public right of way.
Which it's designated the maintenance to the is it the HOA?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, Council, what's your pleasure on this consent agenda?
I move that we approve items 6, A, B, and C, noting that A, there were some spelling corrections on those that we approved.
And second.
All right. Motion and second to approve these 3 items, noting the corrections that have been made in the minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we move to item 7 in the agenda, ordinances, resolutions, and public hearings. Item A is a public hearing for citizen input on the fiscal year 2024 budget, and to also announce the upcoming budget meetings. Shall we go to Krista? You want to outline the meetings? Is that where we need to go, Mr. Bailey? I do have some comment. People want to comment.
Whatever your preference would be, Mayor.
Okay. Well, we have it written here, and it will be publicized quite a bit. So we'll forego the announcement of it at this point. That's okay. Everybody has access to that information. The next one, the first one, the workshop on the general fund budget, is on Monday, July 24th. Today is just an opportunity to open the door for comment. There will be no action or discussion about budget specifics today, but I know that we at least have one signed up. Jeanette Ormuth? No, this is a public comment. It's not a public hearing.
Okay.
Oh, should we go to public hearing? Okay, please do.
I move that we go from regular session to public hearing.
Motion second to go from regular to public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thank you. I'm having trouble reading this morning, Jeanette. It says public hearing. Thank you, Councilman Watson. Yeah, you're up.
Right. Got to get the right title there, right? I'm Jeanette Hormuth. I live in the city. And I just want to put a bug in your ear as you begin the budget process. My appraisals went up 33% this year just for living in my house. Haven't done anything. Last year it also went up. The past several years, 25% every year. The thing is that it doesn't really matter what the appraisals are, because the amount that we're going to pay in taxes are set by the city, the county, and the school board by the tax rate that you set. So if the appraisals go up really the tax rate should come down so that people aren't paying more than last year, really, because you have new construction and everything else and all that sort of thing. The past several years, about the past 10 years, the budget has expanded way beyond what the growth has been in the city. I don't have the figures, but basically, I feel we've been overtaxed, and I'm feeling it as many are. Seriously, I feel like I'm being taxed out of my home, and I know many people that have to leave because they can no longer handle the taxing. And it's not just you. I know the city takes a smaller percent, but you are in charge of your own budget. And like I said, this budget, I'll have figures later when I get my hands on them. But like I said, the budget has gone up many times past what the growth is. And that is unjust. And it's unjust that people's homes can be taken from them just because of the burden. So I ask you that as you look through the budget this year, that you're mindful of the people who you represent and that you work for their good. You're the servants and trustees of the people. We rely on you to be our voice to the city. You're like the liaison. I can't say that, but the council's job is to direct the city on what the parameters are going to be, rather than, usually it's been reversed. It's like, okay, city, what do you want to spend? And then the council basically might tweak a few things and just say, okay, and sign up on it. But last year we found many, many items. We found and I left my notes over there, of course, but there were something like, well, Wes knows what it is. Many line items, like over 100 line items that increased more than the rate of inflation and just the reasonable thing. And then as they went down, we found many, many items that were increased, 75%, 200%, 100%, all the way down, lots of places that could be cut. And I assume that's going to be the same thing here. But I'm asking that as you go into the budget, consider reversing how you're going about it. I asked the city to direct the city council to direct the city to say, we want a conservative budget. We'd like to be able not to charge people any more than last year. In fact, I would even say, let's see if we can cut at least 5% this year. That means you could take the priorities that you have, but then cut in other areas. And there's always places to cut. But we need it. We, the people, as you know, inflation has gone up ridiculously. Many food prices have gone up 50% in the past year, some 200%. You go try to get eggs, milk, and different things, fuel, all this. This is like eating away all of our, disposable income. So anyway, I just put that out for you and ask that you take more control over what the city is going to propose. Okay, and again, looking at essential services and functions of the government, and not getting involved with things that are not really that the city should be doing. Thank you.
Someone else to speak on this public hearing? Yeah, Wes.
Good morning, thank you. In looking over last year's budget as the increase year over year, I think it was proposed about 11%. You guys came in about 5 million under the proposed budget. I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I have the final numbers on it yet, but I've got to do a little bit more digging. But our population growth over the last 3 years has been 7%. So if you average that out, that's about 2.5% over 3 years as an average year over year growth rate. Why would we exceed that from a dollar standpoint? What's the justification? I think the priorities when it comes to budgeting as a city is you're doing the things that we as citizens can't otherwise do efficiently, like water service, electricity. That'd be tremendously expensive for all of us to set that up one by one and do the maintenance and stuff. That's why we come together as a collective and let the city run those services. I think there are very important things that need to be done. I mean, one thing that I've looked into that I've seen that I have a history with working with is document retention and converting permanent files over to electronic. It's better access, faster. Those are pretty important things because you have a legal obligation to do that. There are other things that are not as essential that we would like to do that are recreational. But I think the focus should be when it comes to budgeting, keeping in line with the growth that we've seen and really focusing in on what is truly essential as a government function and what are the maintenance requirements and really looking at where we can cut. And I know and I appreciate that it's not easy. I've been through this process in companies and, everybody wants to have something done so that they can, have better things. But where do we really need these things and how can we match the growth that we've seen in the past couple of years and not exceed that? Because we really did last year go over the line on several things. And maybe we could have done better on some of our software purchases, for example. I don't know. But that's for you guys to really dig into, and hopefully we get the numbers soon on everything that's proposed. And I'm hoping that we get to see that like in an easier format this year, like an Excel spreadsheet or some sort of spreadsheet that gives us all the fund accounts easily downloadable so that we can see it all. Because it's a tremendous amount of work to take that and convert it from a PDF file into something that's readable so that we can kind of go through it. Because we want to be a part of the process. We want to try to help, make suggestions, especially where people have expertise. I know we have some former government workers in here that understand the process very well and can offer their insights. So hopefully we get more people involved in the process and have more of a dialogue. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I move we go from public hearing to regular session.
Second.
Motion second to go back into regular session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Council, do y'all want any comments? Anybody want to proceed this further? That's we've covered this morning. That what's on the agenda. The public hearing, opening public hearing. Anything further today? Okay. Item 7B is Charter Review Committee. Mr. Bailey.
Okay, Mayor, Council. So we did open up the application process for the Charter Review Committee that closed last Friday. We have a total of 17 applicants. And we have a resolution in front of you, an amended resolution in front of you for approval this morning that includes 10 members appointed to that committee, 2 council members appointed, and then we'll have 3 staff ex officio members, myself, the city attorney, and city secretary. So at this point, Mayor, unless you have any questions about the process, I would open it up for the council to discuss the applicants and applicant selection.
Okay.
I did have one question on that. When we had input the last time, I believe it was Mr. Dooley was recommending 15 members from previous charter reviews, and I noticed Mick's outline listed 10. Is there any issue with one or the other? What's the recommendation?
So we will have a total of 15 with the 2 council members and the 3 staff members. Again, yes, sir.
15 plus.
No, 15 total. 15 total. 10 that you will select from the 17 applications, 2 council members, 3 staff members.
Mayor, before we go into specific names, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate some new faces being on this list. There are people who have not served in public office or on any boards, and they wanted to get involved with the city. And so I appreciate them putting themselves out there and wanting to take the first step to be involved.
Well, then we have to exclude some applicants, right? So we have to figure that what that criterion will be. I was impressed with the number of applicants and what they noted as their reason for applying. I like the new faces too. I have 17 applicants. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we're looking for 10.
Correct. And I wanted to point out, Mayor, that the resolution says we'll make the decision in July. So if for some reason we can't make a decision on all 10 today, we just have to make that decision by sometime in July.
Okay. Well, council, talk to us about what your hoped for criterion is to dwindle this down. Go ahead.
I think diversity is important in terms of people with experience and not as much experience yet. And I think having a pipeline of future leaders is key to our continued success. So,
and would that require a thorough examination of their application and then a conversation, or what do you recommend? What's written on the application is good, but is that sufficient?
I'd love to know if y'all want to have an interview with people and ask them to come to our next meeting, maybe, or if we can just tick through the list. It's kind of hard to pick in this kind of situation.
I would echo and support everything you said. The diversity and having well-rounded input from citizens, individuals that have municipal experience, legal, all of that, I think is paramount. I wouldn't mind having just a very short conversation with the candidates, just not necessarily an interview, but what's your passion? Why are you interested in doing this? Just to some of the candidates I know well, some I don't.
Didn't Mick last time say we couldn't actually interview him? Is that right? You may.
I think what Mick was referring to is we could not deliberate in executive session like we are able to with boards and commission applicants, because these folks are just doing recommendations. They don't have any authority to approve. Is that correct?
That is correct. They're not public officers or employees, and so the employee deliberation section is.
There are some that I see that appear very obvious to me in my choice, that have, I know them to have experience with the community, have experience particularly with municipal issues. I like the fact that we've got some new people, because we're going to need some new people in the near future to run for mayor and council and be on these boards and commissions and so forth. This is a good first step, and many of them mentioned that they'd like to. But we're always talking about getting more people involved. Some of these names I do not know, and I don't know other than what they've said on their application, which is impressive, that they would serve well and be. That we're looking for a number. That's what we're cutting down. So that would be 7 people that we would cut. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, I was impressed with the diversity of the people that sent in applications. I'm glad to see new faces. I did ask Sydney Donnell to send in an application. Her only concern is not knowing the dates of the meetings. She might have some scheduling issues.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that Mr. Dooley mentioned, that having that many people is helpful, because then everybody knew that there was some conflicts, right? It's a 6-month process, right? Is it what we've decided? I think so.
Less. I think it's August through December, right? It's the ultimate
August
goal
and December. Okay.
coming to council in January.
5.
And I was glad to see that some of the people that had served on this committee board requested to serve on it again, and I think having the experience would be valuable.
Oh, part of it is you do need some fresh blood, like always, get some outside information, but it's important, as I feel, that we have a lot of this history that these people that bring along, and so that's still a main criteria that I sit at, saying that we need new thoughts in there too, but I would agree with some of these people that certainly got the experience.
Okay, so you want to take no action today and follow that individually, or with your pleasure?
How's that going to work? I mean, do we each individually need to reach out to these people, or does Shelley, I'm just talking through this, like, does Shelley need to send an email to everyone and say, hey, you need to contact each council member individually if you don't already know them, and talk, like, how does that work?
Or do we come back with a short list individually and have the conversation?
I have a short
At the
list
next
now.
meeting.
Does anyone have
now.
we have two short lists?
Sorry.
We have two short lists.
You have 3.
No, I have my list of
Oh.
10. Bobby does. How are y'all? Y'all ready?
I don't, but I'm comfortable going forward if you want to.
You do. All right. Then, Councilmember Kirschner, what's your short list?
Don't make me go first, Mayor. Someone else can.
All right, I'll go. Tim Krimwuggy, Sidney Donnell, Tim Dooley, Eric Camerson, Griffin Cott, James McAfee, Tom Musselman, Gary Neffendorf, Taylor Williams, and Andrew Colwell.
Who was the last one?
Andrew Colwell.
All right, you went through that fast. Let me write it
Okay.
down again.
Tim Dooley, Sidney Donnell, Tim Krenwelge, Eric Camerson, Griffin Cott, James McAfee, Tom Marshall, Gary Neffendorf, Taylor Williams, and Andrew Caldwell.
Not Tom.
Tom Musselman, what did I say?
So Marshall.
Tom Marshall. Tom Marshall didn't apply.
Tom Musselman
Tom Musselman.
and Gary Neff.
That's right.
Okay.
I saw Tom Marshall in the parade yesterday, so that's why.
I'm sorry. I had a big day yesterday. I only got 8 out of that.
Okay. Tim Krenwell,
Got it.
Dooley, Sidney Donnell,
Got it.
Eric Camerson,
Got it.
Griffin Cott,
Got it.
James McAfee,
James. Mac.
Tom Musselman, Gary Neffendorf,
Okay.
Taylor Williams,
Taylor. Okay.
Andrew Caldwell.
Taylor Williams is the attorney.
Yes. Yeah. And he's also in school.
No.
No,
He's on zoning board of
that's
adjustment.
right.
How does yours vary? Ms. Kirschner?
I have Joelle Torres, Catherine Sharrock, Alan Breacher, Andrew Colwell, Tim Krenwelge, Sidney Donnell, Tim Dooley, Griffin Cott, Tom Musselman, and Taylor Williams.
What was the last one?
Taylor Williams.
All of these people have verified that they're residents of the city.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Joelle Torres, Catherine Sharrock, Alan Breacher, Andrew Colwell, Tim Krenwelge,
Okay.
Sidney Donnell, Tim Dooley, Griffin Cott, Tom Musselman, and Taylor Williams.
Brandon.
So in listening through the list, some of the folks I don't know, so I'll apologize in advance, but certainly support Tim Krenwalge, Eric, Gary Neffendorf, Tom Musselman, Tim Dooley, Taylor Williams, Alan Breacher.
I'm in the same boat, Randy. And people that I know that you recommended in your list, ladies and gentlemen, are strong candidates for this, in my opinion. So, Tim Krenwalge, former mayor, longtime city council member, Tim Dooley, Tom Musselman, and Eric Hammerman. I don't know where in the world you continue to step up and want to do stuff. But, in retirement, I would think you'd love to. I'm glad you do. I'm glad you do. Yeah. And I have met and know the new faces with Taylor Williams. I know Griffin Cotton from the time he was a child. Andrew, I really liked his application in Sydney. I don't know Kathy or is it Joelle?
Joel, yes.
But you do, and I respect your ability to make those choices.
Our kids are classmates in school together. He's got a young family. And then Catherine is a local realtor.
Yeah.
I know her sister as well.
Somebody's holding up.
Yeah, Tom. Are you going to back out?
What I'd like from the last meeting. So procedurally, there are 10, 2 council, 3 staff. Are the 2 council and 3 staff voting members? No. Then my suggestion would be instead of 10 people, you need to have an odd number. You need to have 11.
Because the staff and council members are not voting.
Right.
Okay.
We had 10 people and then 2 council and 3 staff last time.
Correct. But what I'm saying is that what happens in a situation when the Charter Review Committee is sitting there are 10 people, all 10 citizen representatives are there, and it's a 5-5. It's a 5-5 tie on whether there should be recall in the charter.
But he said that happened last time. That was the process last time that Mr. Dooley recommended, who was on there, that you did have 10 members and 5 others, right?
Right, we did. We did. So I'm raising the issue to now.
Okay.
Is that should we have an odd number to forestall any kind of tie vote? Of course, you might only have 10 people that show up. I know that in the last Charter Review Committee, not every member of the Charter Review Committee came to every meeting.
Yeah.
Though we did have votes on things at every meeting. I mean, these are recommendations that go back to council that go on to
You're saying an odd number could break any ties.
Right. So that's just something that you might want to think about.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Our city attorney has input as well.
Oh, okay. Something to contribute here.
Sure. So when you're amending your charter, there's no statutory requirements, and that's in the charter itself for a charter review commission or committee to be formed. So there's no rules out there about what number. That's just something that was recommended or something on the last time. So I don't think that there'll be a problem with having 11 citizen members if the council like consider.
Because procedurally, the charter is voted on in finality by this committee, and then it comes to the council, right, to vote on, and then it goes to the voters next May. So it's not like the Charter Review Committee is the final say. So if there is a tie vote for some reason, we would know that when it comes to us on the specific measure.
Figure it out. Yeah. Well, I take Mr. Musselman's point, but since it's been done that way the last week, I unfollow. All right, then let's do those two. Yeah. Here's my list. I'll get. Sorry. What were they? Tim, Corinne, Tom, Gary. Sorry. Yeah, I liked Andrew Colwell's application a lot. What he said about wanting to involve. I like Sydney. You said her. Some of these people I don't know, and I'm sure they're lovely. I'm sure they're great. But yeah, Eric. So my list is, excuse me, my list is 8. It's Tim C, Tim D, Gary, Griffin, Taylor, Andrew, Sydney, and Eric.
So that was Tim Crenwelge, Sidney Donnell, Tim Dooley, Eric Hamerson, Griffin Cott, Tom Musselman, Gary Neffendorf, and Andrew Palmer. Is that correct?
Is that not? Sure. You want to get the ones we totally agree on and then fill the list?
That is it.
Well, I think the Tim, the Tom, and the Eric is pretty much agreeable. Right?
The 2 Tims,
Mm-hmm.
Tom,
And Eric.
Eric, and Gary.
And Gary.
All right.
I like Griffin with me, young and new.
We got 3 for Taylor.
Taylor.
I would also like to reinforce Alan Breacher.
Ellen wasn't in our meeting.
She had said, and I'm fine with that.
So we got Alan.
All right, so that leaves 2. So they want to lobby for.
What's the current list? Yeah.
Okay, here's what I have. Sorry, this is taking a while, but we got 10 names to deal with and 5 people with their opinions. So, and I get it that you want to do this today. So that's what I'm getting.
You have 8.
You want to move on?
Sorry. You have 8.
Right. So I have. I'll go slow. Tim Crenwelge, Tim Dooley, Tom Musselman, Eric Hamerson, Gary Neffendorf, Griffin Cott, young, new, Taylor Williams, young, new, Alan Breacher, old, new. He won't mind myself. That's my 8. So that's 2 slots, folks.
I would recommend Sydney Donnell.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8.
Alan Breacher.
Okay, so you said Sydney.
Sydney and Andrew.
Andrew Colwell.
Y'all good with that?
Is where does Taylor Williams stand right now? Is he?
He's on.
He's on.
He's on the list.
Yeah.
All right. So Shelley, here we go one more time. This is government at its most efficient.
Let's do list.
Tim Crenwelge, Tim Dooley, Tom Musselman, Eric Emerson, Gary Neffendorf, Griffin Cott, Taylor Williams, Alan Breacher, Sydney, yeah, and Andrew Cole. That's 10. Everybody good with that? Yeah. Do you have a comment? There's no females?
And they're all white.
Well, this is Frederick. Any issues?
Are there other candidates that we should reconsider based upon that?
No. I don't. That's my opinion. You want to vote on that list? Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
And also 2 council members.
All right. Somebody wants to, who wants to serve on this council?
I would like to, again.
Another, and Randy? All right. Would one of you,
The new and the old.
Sorry?
The new and the old.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Who you calling on?
All right. Would one of you like to, would you agree to be appointed to the chair? If you have to. You'll go with Bobby being the chair. All right. And who chooses staff? You?
It's said, city manager, city attorney, city secretary.
All right. All right. So we amend the ordinance. Is that in here?
The resolution. Yes,
I'm sorry. The resolution, not ordinance. Is that in here?
yes, sir.
Let me get back to mine. Okay. 2023-13R, establishing a charter review committee, including composition, purpose, and appointing individuals to the committee. The composition we've discussed 10 plus 2 plus 3. Purpose is in the resolution, and we are now at the point of appointing individuals. One more time. Tim Crenwell, Tim Dooley, Tom Musselman, Eric Emerson, Gary Neffendorf, Griffin Cott, Taylor Williams, Alan Breacher, Sydney, and Andrew. Now, that right? I'll take that as a yes. Yeah. Yes. We do. We need a motion to revise that resolution appointing those people.
And do we need to state the 2 city council people?
Yes, sir.
So somebody make the motion.
I so move.
Second.
All right, so those 10 people are called out several times, plus Mr. Watson and Mr. Friley. Mr. Watson appointed as the chairperson. Staff has already decided we have a 15-member committee. Motion and second to approve the resolution 2023-13R establishing this committee as stated. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're at item 8. Consider the City of Fredericksburg City Council recognition proclamation and honor policy. Council, you have this in your packet. Is there any changes of the substance from last time?
Shelley and I base reviewed a few others, and I think the one that we proposed the first time looks okay. Puts a lot of on the mayor. The mayor gets paid more money than everybody else. So
that's a tough duty to do.
I make a motion we accept that policy. It's in the packet.
Second.
Motion second to approve that policy that has appeared in our packet and is online. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8B, continued discussion regarding the need for affordable housing. I'm going to recognize Riley as a presentation he wants to present. Then I do have 5 people who signed up to speak, as well as a written comment that was submitted via email.
So while Eric is connecting me here, I think this was one of the first big items when I took the chair here at City Council, and I willingly admit that probably am the least educated in the area of housing authority. So I took it upon myself to go do an analysis, and I sat down with key stakeholders in the community, a number of private residents and citizens having coffee, having conversation, and I just want to make really crystal clear that when you do approach the podium and voice your concerns, we listen. We do listen to that. So both sides. So the goal of this, hopefully that screen's advancing okay, really was to document and communicate the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats and viability of a housing authority for the city of Fredericksburg. We all recognize the housing challenge, but is this the correct tool? So what I tried to do is remove the emotion. I actually found out it's incredibly emotional, and so I tried to remove that piece, and I just tried to look at the data and the facts and just gather input and not just my personal opinions. So that's how I approached the issue. The strengths and the areas, and this a lot of this came from Vince Michelle, is its exclusive mission is to address shortage of affordable housing, and the target audience really was 25 to 60K. That's kind of the range we're looking at, his range that he was looking at. And the housing authority would receive federal funds to subsidize rent and make it more affordable to live in Fredericksburg proper. There is a provision to provide local preference. I think one of the concerns is if we're trying to fix the problem, are we addressing the right audience, the right potential clients and tenants? And that would be nurses, teachers, police, fire, EMS, and that's really, I think the goal is to try to do that. Eric, I don't know what's happening there. Okay. So that I think that was the effort, and that's the defect. I use the word defect a lot in trying to solve problems. Is what's the defect? And the annual tax credit would go to the who's operating the product, and in this case, it's apartments. There's no path to ownership. It's apartments and subsidized rent for that. And the federal tax credit ensures that stays affordable. The weaknesses and areas I think I just mentioned was. It's going to be a multifamily apartment. There is no path to individual ownership under this particular model. Based upon interviews, and when I say interviews, this is a lot of people I've spoken with, in-state, out-of-state. It'll create a high occupancy, low turnover development. What happens is once individuals are in that property and they're subsidized, the turnover in that is very, very slow, and I'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. Potentially, it could require a startup loan from the city. Up not to exceed 100K was the number that was provided to me. It doesn't have to be that way. These could all be volunteers, but that was the conversation. Probably 2 years to start up before our shovel hits the dirt. So there's a good period of time. Housing authority would require land grants, donations, leases from private, city, FISD, HCM, and other sources, and the board would be non-elected members in conversation with a number of different cities. There has to be city support to make this effective and make it work well. That's the coaching I received. The opportunities, as I mentioned, local preference, potentially if it worked well. The board consists of volunteers, and the strategy would be to develop partnerships in a 501c3 with investors and private developers. So there's kind of a triangle of those individuals working towards a common goal. So that's how it would look from an opportunity perspective. Threats, when I sat down with the EDC, I looked at the total number of properties currently under construction, approved, or pending review. There's about 1,900 units currently being planned or proposed in the city in that region. And so I would ask anybody to correct me here, and if I'm off there by any measure. I tried to get a feel of what was the average rent on those properties, and quite frankly, I was not successful in getting that. So I don't know if that addresses the 25 to 60K range yet. I simply don't have that information. There is an undefined potential cost to city infrastructure for utilities. We haven't determined what that is because we don't know what the building looks like or where it would go. So I just put that as a potential threat and a cost. Repayment of the startup funds back to the city would be subject to the Housing Authority Board, and that's just a risk. If that goes out after 24, 36 months, et cetera, is that money returned properly? It's just a risk. I just want to document that. There is an ability, I was informed by Vince, that a petition of 100 signatures could force the creation of a housing authority without the city council's input. It's just out there. That's part of the legislation. Let me see what else. Local preference I just talked about, so I'll move on from that. So that's kind of the highlight of it. And what I did is we did have an individual approach the podium about 2 months ago, and he challenged us to go talk to other neighboring towns, which I did. And so that's some of the information here. But again, this is some of the EDC's information here. Currently, we have about 827 units. We're sitting at about 98% occupancy. The 2% is under construction or some other variable. 491 under construction, 598 pending, 808 proposed. So that's in the I think a 5 to 10-year window. And Tim, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. So conversations with Burnett Marble Falls. This is the request that came from one of our citizens that came to the podium. So I had an extensive phone conversation interview with Billy, and she has a staff of about 7 people solely focused on managing federal voucher programs. And I didn't know what a voucher was. A voucher basically is an entitlement. So it could be an individual, it could be a family. And so she walked me through it, and it's a static number. So it's a set number. And I asked, well, if I drive in tomorrow and I make $20,000 a year, can I get a voucher from you? And she said, you go on a wait list about 2-year time frame. And then through attrition or people moving on, moving out, you become available to receive that. They have about 40 units. These are all fairly old units. They're not breaking ground on anything new. None of those are for sale. They're all simply for rent. And I asked, what does your tenant profile look like? And it was largely retirees, elderly, or disabled. And there were no police, teachers, nurses in any of those units. Tenant prioritization, I was looking for, can we prioritize for police, fire, and EMS and so forth? The answer was no, it's strictly based income-based criteria only. And again, they're not breaking ground, they're not doing anything more than just managing the federal program. So that's how Burnett Marble Falls is working. Mason, Tommy is the director up there. They were founded in 2001. They manage about 50 units, 98% occupied, kind of mirrors what we have in our apartments right now today. Largely retired disabled clients. Mason owns the land, I think most of it, and they're subject to a biannual federal on-site inspection. So an auditor will fly into Burnett or into Mason every 2 years, do a physical inspection of properties, and give them a green check box to continue doing what they're doing. They can fix roofs, windows, and doors, and that is it. And they're specifically precluded by the government to build new inventory for whatever reasons. No path to ownership, it's rent only. They do have a couple of Habitat for Humanity homes that are outside of the purview of the Housing Authority, but that do exist. And there is a for-profit, privately owned Silverleaf facility for retirement. So that's kind of what Mason looks like. I did reach out to Jackson Hole, Teton County, Wyoming, and there was I don't recall if it was 60 Minutes, but there was an article on those folks very recently, and it looked a lot like a very distant, much bigger cousin to Fredericksburg. And April Norton is executive director. She also sits on a national workforce housing authority for the country. Extremely interesting person. She has 6 employees. The investment, the average single-family home up there is about $5 million right now. The apartments go for $2,000 per bedroom, so it's pretty expensive just to rent a bedroom. They have 1,000 units, and 60% of which are owned, and 40% which are rented, which are their deed-restricted properties. I was very interested in that because I do want to see a path to ownership. When I've had conversation with our professionals, first-line responders here, The general feeling and feedback I got was we want to have a path to ownership. We want to own a home. Most of our police, fire, and EMS folks are married, have one child or more, and the desired platform for them is to own a home. And so I certainly understand that. So they have about 150 units in Community Land Trust, Habitat for Humanity, 50 units. There is a path to ownership, and there's a weighted drawing process for tenant prioritization, which is focused on police, teachers, and nurses. The school district up there, interestingly enough, is developing properties of their own for rent for their teachers. And April is going to be in Austin on July 24th. I've reached out to her a couple of times, trying to schedule her in. Nothing is confirmed. Her final comments to me was, you know, we have one of the largest per capita billionaire populations in the country. Our tax rate's 5 cents on the dollar. You know, we look different because of the folks that live in our town. So I'm not sure that that model will work with us, but I think it's interesting to have a conversation and due diligence to see what is she doing that's different, because her model, to my knowledge, is not leveraging federal money. So she's operating differently than Mason and Burnett and Marble Falls. So I'd like to glean from her what she's doing, and are there lessons learned through her work. So this is a presentation I put together. It's not intended to foreshadow a vote, simply try to collect information and remove emotion so we make a better decision. So, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Randy, for all that extra work. I appreciate that. Let me ask you about this Jackson Hole model. So they have a housing authority that does do what the typical housing authority does, that you've shown in Mason, Light, Line, and so forth. The access to HUD money for low income. Is that not correct?
I don't believe they're accessing that.
Okay.
And her statement was, we have a large component of philanthropy in our model here. So we have individuals that are giving money, giving property, giving land.
Yeah.
So her model, I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe she's accessing federal money. That's what I'd like to find out more.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to clarify, since you've done some research here, I appreciate that. What I'm trying to clarify is that I've heard that Chapter 392 tends to focus, or maybe specifically focuses, on those first models you talked about, Mason and Burnett, where it is a pathway to access HUD money to develop low-income apartments for people who qualify through through their wages. And it's that the one that you showed, the 24 to 60, was that based on an area median income? Is that how they do it?
I'm sorry, the 2460, which slide was
In one of the first slides, I think it was made as
is that
What that
Burnett maybe?
Burnett.
Yeah. So they're leveraging HUD money.
Yeah.
392.
Okay, so here's what I don't know about a housing authority. I think I know that, but here's what I don't know. And some people have told me, and I haven't found the model yet, that they say first you form a housing authority, then you can be creative in how you assess it or how you use it. But my understanding is, and I'm open to being educated, my understanding is a housing authority is this. This is what this does. It accesses HUD money for low-income apartments, and it does not have expanded potential.
The two models in Texas that I had conversations with, neither one are breaking ground. They're not developing. They're accessing and leveraging HUD money.
Yeah. Did you learn anything where a housing authority could be expanded to do something else? In other words, it's a basket where you can put other stuff in it, or because that was my objection to housing authority, was that it was a specific solution to a problem that I haven't heard we're trying to solve. That we're talking about, like you said, the nurses and the police and that sort of thing. Path to ownership, I like that, and that I support that 100% too, in terms of a city initiative. But you didn't find any housing authority with an expanded mission.
I didn't see any other interpretations of this, and there are restrictions from HUD that they can't break ground. They can maintain existing properties, and their tenant base is what I described. So I don't see that fixing the problem that we're trying to address here.
Well, I think that's what I heard from the Austin group as well when we went to visit with them, was that they applied several different solutions to their large issue. And one was a housing authority, which directly, as I said, was access to HUD money for low-income apartments. And then they had a huge philanthropic investment in Austin.
Some thoughts.
I'm looking at you because you were there.
Yeah. Well, I have some thoughts, so when it's appropriate, I'd like to share.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So this book. I think it's made the rounds. It was purchased by a former city council member back in 2008, but it's called Living and Working in Paradise: Why Housing is Too Expensive and What Communities Can Do About It. And they look as a case study through, at Martha's Vineyard, Aspen, Whistler, and Provincetown. And all three of those communities do a variety of different fixes to look at affordable housing, like direct public development through publicly owned or developed housing, affordability controls through deed restrictions, and then one thing I want to talk about, because I think this is something we can address in the near term as we look at the big overall picture of housing, but public enablement through relaxed zoning regulations. Specifically, right now, our zoning ordinance does not allow someone to rent out their ADU as a long-term rental. It can only be a short-term rental. That's backwards. I think we're working against our communities on that one. The other one, short-term rental permits are required. You're required to rent out your home or ADU or facility or whatever every 90 days, or else you lose your permit. Well, I would like to give people the flexibility to be able to intermittently have it be an STR, but then also have it be a long-term rental as the need presents itself. I think that would be very helpful. So I would like to see us take action on those items sooner than later as we go through the bigger picture of how to fix housing.
Any other comment? I've got some people who want to speak, but I want you to. Okay. Then let's go ahead and have our speakers who signed up for this. Eric Hamerson.
Eric Hammers, I'm a resident of the city. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. I've heard a lot of well-intentioned, earnest, sincere individuals say this isn't the city's business, let the market handle this. And I'm certainly in favor of the idea of inherent government responsibilities, police, fire, EMS, etc. But for decades, we have tried to let the market handle this problem for us. And I don't see a lot of affordable housing for mid-level professionals, entry-level professionals, middle-class people that have sprung up around town. The market's really great at what it does. It maximizes profit with lowest cost to investors, and that's really good. But it also brought us the sale of our hospital to a for-profit corporation. It brought us a tourism business that is focused on alcohol as opposed to families coming here. It hollowed out some of our neighborhoods in favor of party houses. I'm not bad-mouthing all STRs, but there are some that are problems. What it didn't bring us was affordable housing for middle-class people in sufficient quantities available for rent or purchase. So I'm really thrilled with the idea you all are looking at this, looking at new ideas, coming up with new proposals, checking and seeing what other people do. We hired a housing authority or housing manager to look at proposals, and he came up with a lot of them. And I think the idea of looking at each of those makes really good sense, because what we have tried to do for the last couple of decades just hasn't gotten us where we want to go. I've heard other folks say that the solution to this is employers really ought to pay more money to their employees so they can afford to live here, and that's a great idea. And I would think that no doubt those same individuals are going to be standing up here saying, we're in favor of higher taxes by the county, the city, and the school board to pay higher salaries to their employees so they can afford to live here. They don't have to drive in from San Antonio or other places. What I would suggest to people who think that the market's the right way to do this is come up with a proposed solution as to how we change the way the market functions so that it will do in the future what it hasn't done in the past, which is provide us with the housing that we need for the people that we want to attract to the jobs that we will need to have done here within our city. Thank you.
Mary Lee Marshall.
I'm Mary Lee Marshall. I live in Fredericksburg. And I have to say that normally I would not show up for a city council meeting dressed like this, but I have this thing called a job, which I should be doing now, but I'm here. I hear there is some hesitation about inviting the federal government in to solve our housing problems. I'm glad to hear that hesitation because federal housing authorities establish areas of habitation, quote unquote, that invite evil, crime, drug communities. They are a pit of bad things. The population is static because the possibility of people being able to move out is nil because the income that they have has to be so low that they can't live anywhere else. If they were to get another job to earn more money that they could save to buy or rent a better place, it would be illegal for them to live in that community. So these people are trapped. Apartments are vacated when people die or go to prison. It would not solve the problem of teachers and firemen and policemen having a place to live because they earn too much money. They would still be living in other towns. It would be people who are unemployed or on disability or very limited income because they're on Social Security. It's having a public housing authority solve this problem is going further down the road of socialism or communism or whatever ism you want to put on it. We need capitalism. We can solve this problem without the federal government. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Hammerson.
Thank you. I'm Carol Hammerson. I'm a resident of Fredericksburg. Affordable housing for our target population of police, fire, EMT, nurses, and young professionals has been a problem spanning decades, and it remains unresolved. If you came today to propose a solution, I applaud your participation and hope your ideas will be just one of many that will help us resolve this very complex problem. Our republic was founded on the values of citizens having a voice in government, and my civics teacher taught me that we have an obligation to defend to the death the right of others to express their opinions, even those we don't agree with. Recently, a local radio show seemed to suggest that our council wants to create Section 8 public housing projects, predicting that they would mirror the worst images seen on the news, and that our citizens would be paying more taxes. Regrettably, not everyone can attend these meetings, and had you come or had you been watching the recording, you would know that that is exactly what our council does not want. Council members are engaged with officials of other cities in person, by phone, by email, gathering data to be sure that that won't happen if some authority is established. And I say if because no decision has been made. Council's duty is to gather critical information in advance to make well-informed decisions. Our duty as citizens is to be informed by watching recordings, attending meetings when you can, seek out the views of people you respect, doing your own research, not just listening to the loudest negative voices in a crowd. At a time when our nation is so divided by meaningless slogans, questionable behavior, self-serving motives, don't become the voter who hears the opinions of others and equates those opinions with established fact. Fredericksburg is better than that, and as engaged voters, you can protect, perpetuate that most precious ideal of having a knowledgeable, informed group of citizens who help make the decisions that shape our future. Comments were made that the mayor and the city council had shut down the city during COVID in that broadcast, an action I vehemently disagreed with. But thankfully, we have had 2 city elections since then, and we don't have the same mayor and council. Each person you see here in front of you today was elected to their current position with one of those recent elections by you, your friends, your neighbors, and those who took the time to vote. An upsetting reality of politics today is that when people express opinions not grounded in fact or vetted for accuracy, citizens may draw conclusions based on the opinion of people whose motives are not always transparent or altruistic. The results can be disastrous. Passing on bad information is more harmful than no information. Please be the person who gathers the facts, who asks the questions, who listens carefully with an open mind to replies, and stay engaged. It is honorable to be opinionated, to challenge factual inaccuracies, to stand your ground, to advocate for those who cannot do so for themselves, and to be open to debate and new ideas, but always do it with civility and honorable intent, and most importantly, the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I have a submission here by Carolyn Schultz. Carolyn, are you here? Yeah. Are you speaking on the affordable housing issue? Okay. I couldn't tell by your title if that's what the topic was.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Schultz, and I've lived in Fredericksburg with my husband of 34 years and 5 children since 2001. I am, first of all, very encouraged by you, Mr. Riley, and the work that you put in and explained and showed to us this morning. In particular, I'd like to focus upon the idea of the philanthropic avenues that you showed us from Jackson Hole. I'm also grateful, Mayor Hoover, that you took the time to explain or help us to understand better your idea of what a housing authority is, because I think many of us had the same idea that you do, that it would bring in a particular type of housing with very particular ways that could not be moved away from, that would encourage us to look at something more like the philanthropy that I believe resides greatly in our community. And that's what I'd like to speak on for a moment. My husband and I are educators. We have done so in the public, private, and homeschool sectors throughout our married life. We have sought affordable housing for decades. Over a dozen times we've moved and seeking that affordable housing each time. God always provided. How? Through unsolicited generosity. By whom? By family, by friends, by neighbors, acquaintances, the church, and the community. These acts of generosity ranged from simple advice, a real estate tip, help with finances, and prayer. Each of these acts of generosity did more than help us find affordable housing. They helped build relationships. They fostered community and a deep desire to be generous. Since then, we have had the opportunity to pay a small portion forward to others in need of affordable housing. I encourage our council to consider the lost generosity that would occur if we enact a government committee to solve our problems. We live in one of the wealthiest counties in Texas. May we realize the value of private generosity for both the giver and the receiver. As we look for ways to incorporate this virtue in our solution, I continue to add my prayers and my thoughts and my gratitude for you as you continue to move forward and strive to find the best solution to this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Jeanette? Jeanette, I gave you 4.5 minutes last time. I am going to restrict you to 3 on this one. Okay.
Being concise is not my forte, as you know. First of all, I wanted to thank Randy Brightly for putting that out there. That was awesome, and I think it confirmed a lot of things that we were all seeing and questioning and our concerns. And I appreciate, Gerald, your comments about that affordable housing and how having the government come in here and just taking subsidies is kind of a dead end. I think it's not healthy for our community. I also wanted to thank Carolyn Schultz for coming. I know a lot of people that, and myself included, where again that relationship with the community and the generosity of people, because we're called by God to share our gifts, our money, our talents. He gives some things more to people, certain things, and less to others, and vice versa. And we're all supposed to do that voluntarily, not by force. That's why I'm against the government saying, we're going to take your money and we're going to give it over here. The other thing I just wanted to mention is I just question, like, I know you have a particular sector of the population you're trying to solve affordable housing. Everyone has a problem with affordable housing, all of us. And my question is, do we want to spend the time and resources on discriminating on one sector? Why are they essential, which they are, and not other people like, like the family that's raised their kids here for years, been part of the community, have contributed in many ways, and all of that, but they're not in that sector. Or the older people that have the wisdom that are, again, contributing in their different ways. I have great neighbors that have been, have so much to offer, in their wisdom or their generosity. Or I know a little old lady, Mexican lady, that has gone over to help a friend, elderly friend that is having health issues, and she's coming and making food for her every day and coming over. So again, I don't know that spending, like I said, focusing on one and then at the exclusion of others. I'm not saying that you should take care of everybody, but I'm saying, there might be other ways. I like the philanthropic to encourage that. That's a better way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one written comment, Council, that came in. And I've communicated with this person several times, but I actually don't know how to pronounce his name. Does anybody know John? Is it Augenbaugh? Anybody know him? It's Aughinbauh. Augenbaugh, John, you know him? Okay. But you know that family, I guess. Okay, thank you. Anyway, he submitted a written comment that in some summary just says, please do not be swooned by the siren song of we just want to help. Our people here are fiercely independent and take care of their own. A new authority is not without cost. and new departments would have to be created, staff hired, and paid to operate. So a letter in opposition to considering a housing authority, which we is just one of the things we've been discussing. I've kept the affordable housing discussion on the agenda for this very kind of thing, for us to continue to chat about options and not to say we're looking at one thing and we're just going to talk about getting there. Thank you, Randy, for your unique ability to acquire that information and talk to these people and put it in a format that's quick to understand. Thank you. I have been, and I know some of you as well, maybe all of you have been talking to individuals about this issue, and in as many conversations as I can with recently housing authority directors, commercial developers, general contractors, housing federation in Marble Falls, conversation with a housing affordable housing authority, not a housing authority, an affordable housing institution in McAllen, which is a combination of public-private, and getting all of these ideas. And so what I'm hearing is a consistent message, which is this: there is no solution to our housing issue. There is a nibble at a solution. And the city council has a piece of it, perhaps, but so do the employers, the business owners of this community, so do the private landowners, so do other community leaders and other organizations. So this is not going to be a city council fix, whatever it is. And the accusation that, hey, we've been talking about this, one person mentioned my campaign in 2006, where I said housing is something we need to look at, and he's correct. And we did a task force at that time. And one of the main things that came out of that task force was a community development fund, a philanthropic fund, as Ms. Schultz referred to or alluded to, where philanthropy and generosity dealt with this in a way that city taxpayers cannot. So I am excited to be learning much more than I did. But what I wanted to comment about the accusation that we've been talking about this forever is that I see a lot more energy behind the issue right now than I ever have, not only with my colleagues here on the council, but with some people in the community who stepped forward and said, let me offer you my experience and my expertise. So we are looking hard at this. Thank you, Ms. Hammerson, for your comments about make sure that you understand the facts and before you go on radio or wherever. and I've said this many times, but I'll reiterate it here. My phone number is certainly one of the most publicized phone number in the state. And I answer the phone and I talk to people. I would prefer you talk to me about any issue. I don't know about my colleagues here. I can't speak for them, but I know that they are absolutely available and accessible. That's our vision for how we govern Fredericksburg. We do want to hear from you, and we do want to have a discussion. We do want to talk about the ups and the downs and the ins and outs of every option. And I'm open to that. I know they are open to that. And as we move forward through this, what will become of it at some point, I suppose, is some motion and approval or disapproval of some particular action. We'll continue to keep this on the agenda with your permission, council, to move the ball forward on other options. I'll just be on record, I prefer a path to ownership. That's my drive. I want people who want to be here, who want to live here, who want to contribute here, and who want to be part of charter review committees and things that we're looking for. That is that's our future. And we do need to bring up younger folks from outside, and we need more diverse industry, maybe a tech-based economy of some sort. But we're looking at lots of different options to continue to build the best future for Fredericksburg. And housing is one piece, but it's bound up with a lot of other things, which is wage scale and over-reliance on tourism, lack of childcare, lots of other things. So it's a knotty, that's Knotty problem, It's a knotty problem, and I think we've got good heads after it, and I appreciate the council reaching out to outside sources. Other comment before we move on? All right, thank you. Thank you for those of you who came to speak. We'll move on now to number 9, City Manager's Report. Mr. Bailey.
Okay, Mayor, Council, I've spoken to a few of you about a special meeting workshop sometime in July, holding a special meeting workshop to discuss just a couple of items. As we're getting into the budget process, there are a few items that may come up at our recent council workshop, a very long one. We talked about transportation projects. It seems like transportation may be a priority of the council. We talked about some improvements at the landfill. We have since heard the council would like an update on recycling. So what we would propose, again, is a workshop sometime in the next couple of weeks before we really get into the budget process, educating the council on everything with respect to transportation, drawing from our 2016 Transportation Master Plan, talking about 3 tiers of projects, the safety projects, those mid-tier connections we've been talking about. We can fill you in on the relief route, where the route was, what is the status of that, fill in the blanks regarding text dots input, exactly where we are with everything transportation. We can talk about parking. Again, just to educate the council on what all of the options are to address transportation needs in Fredericksburg, including what a potential bond may look like. We want to consider that for sometime next year, coupling these projects together with another project or whatever the case may be. Regarding the landfill, and again, we're just proposing 2 main items here. Regarding the landfill or sanitation department, we've talked about a transfer station being constructed somewhere around Fredericksburg to collect that waste and ship it out of town instead of expanding the footprint of our landfill. We need to make that decision as the useful life of that landfill is becoming shorter and shorter. That window of opportunity is becoming narrower. So we're at a decision point here pretty soon. Again, we want to educate the council on what that is, what that means. What does it look like if we expand the landfill? What does it look like if we collect this waste and ship it out? What are some of the future opportunities for waste energy projects, things like that? And then also talk about the recycling component. We can talk about curbside. We can talk about glass recycling. It seems like there's been a little bit more movement on that. We can show you exactly the materials we're collecting, the revenues, how those have gone up and down over the years. If you want to change up that operation at all. Again, we would just like to educate the council on a couple of these items. Keep the meeting to probably a couple of 2-3 hours, just so you're very well prepared going into future budget discussions when these items come up. We want you to have the full background.
Are you recommending that this be sooner than later?
Yes, sir. And I know we have a regular meeting on the 18th, and we also have budget workshops on the 24th and 26th. So I would propose sometime probably.
Are these specifically related or tangentially related to budget?
Generally,
necessary
yes.
budget decisions for this year.
Generally,
okay.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Because that's a bunch of meetings.
Right. Understand, this is that time of the year, unfortunately. And if you'll turn back to last year, and again, we can start an hour before lunch and work through lunch, whatever the preference of the council is. Again, we just want you to be able to sit back and receive the presentation, be able to ask questions if you have them.
You want us to work on that now? Or schedule it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, council. The next regular session is the 18th, and we have the 24th and 26th budget meetings. You have looking at the month of July. How are y'all doing? I don't intend to go anywhere until the weather gets better.
What does the agenda on the 18th look like?
So the agenda on the 18th right now is fairly light. We have conditional use permit, street closure, rezoning, so a couple of planning items.
These are going to be approvals from Izzy.
Correct.
Yes,
that correct?
actually, there'll just be one. One was pulled from tonight's agenda, so there'll just be one rezoning.
But I proposed an agenda item co-sponsored by Councilman Klein regarding HOT process review. I don't know when that's going to hit the agenda cycle, but I'll put that out there. And that can wait till the next session if we're too busy with that session.
Right. And finally, I'll have my more substantial city manager update that next meeting.
So y'all proposing to have it on the have that discussion on the 18th for transportation, trash, and recycling? I'm not clear.
My question was, if the agenda was fairly light, just proceed into the workshop after that.
Oh, from regular meeting into a workshop over lunch?
Sure.
Okay. On the 18th. And let's, with that, make the recommendation that the agenda remain light. Obviously, anything that's needed. But yeah. I'm good with that. I missed the day. That'd be the 18th, Tony. That's the next regular meeting. Good, you ready? Oh, okay. Well, invite her to come. What a great birthday that would be.
We'll see.
Okay. So, but we're talking probably finishing up by 1 to 1:30. Yeah. Shall we do that? All right, let's do that. Set it for the 18th.
Sounds great.
And we're going to do it here. Right? Yes, sir. Okay. In this room. Okay. What else?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. All right, we do have an executive session item, which is consult with our city attorney's office regarding some possible litigation related to short-term rentals.
Did we get through the future agenda items?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Item 10, future agenda.
Sure. And again, a couple of street closures, or let's see, one street closure. We have a conditional use permit for 5 new first floor short-term rental units in the historic shopping district. We have.
That's not going to be on the PNC tonight, right?
That's on tonight.
It was scheduled for tonight. We got it pulled as of Friday, so it'll likely come later
It
in the
won't be
summer.
on tonight's agenda.
So that item's off.
Correct.
Rezoning request for the 400 block of East Austin Street from R1 to R2. And we have a parks item. I don't see Jennifer. Take action on a request to waive a security deposit reservation fees policy for the Veterans Council of Gillespie County to bring the moving wall, a third scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, D.C. to the Pioneer Pavilion, either April or May of 2025. Then we have my update and Randy, potentially item for discussion of HOT.
And again, to keep the agenda light, I'm happy to move that to the next section.
Okay. Thank you. And that's it for now, and we'll add the special session items onto the agenda.
Thank you. Now are we ready for the thing? I always appreciate you all staying on top of things when I lose them. Thank you.
I move we go from regular session to executive session.
Second.
Second.
Motion second to go from regular into executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?